6 inches for each second wall. If we're up on the second floor and we're measuring from inside, we have to add 6 inches for each exterior wall. We measure downstairs from the outside. And if you are, look at that book, make sure that air conditioning, you understand that air conditioning is not required. Heat is, air conditioning is not. And in order for us to count square footage, we have to access it from heated square footage, walking into heated square footage. I can't walk outside, or I can't walk through the garage. Excuse me, I got the hiccups, I'm sorry. I can't walk through the garage to get there, right? I can't walk through anything that's not heated, all right, to get there. If that would be additional, but not part of the main frame here. Now the commission, real estate commission will give you 5% margin of error. We've talked about that. So if you're going to put it out there, you have to be accurate. You have to be accurate. Unpermitted space, let's say they didn't get a permit for their bedroom that they added on there. They didn't get permits for it, all right? Unpermitted space can be considered part of the heated square feet, all right? But it still needs to be disclosed as unpermitted, all right? Still need to be disclosed as unpermitted. We need to be able to disclose that, all right? It's still a heated square foot, but it's unpermitted. We have to put that in the listing. So to add a room as heated square feet, it has to be a permanent heat source. Constant ability to keep the house at 65 degrees when it's 20 degrees outside, and be able to access it from heated square foot, all right? Has to be a permanent. Can't be one of those little kettle heaters. It can't be from something you plug in or anything else like that. A little space heater, they don't work. Kerosene heater, no. It has to be a permanent source. Heated square feet is going to be permanently heated. It's going to be finished. It's going to have sheetrock. It's going to be painted. It's not going to just be bare walls, right? It could have panel. It could have wallpaper, paint, whatever. And it has to be accessible from another heated square foot. However, it has to be a minimum of 7 feet, and it can't be any less than 5 feet. All right, so most of you are familiar with how some bonus rooms are set up, right? So if let's say you're in you go up the stairs and you're in a room. Matter of fact, the room I'm in right now is set up like this, and the ceiling is not particularly straight up and down. In order for me to count this as finished square foot, this would have to be a minimum of 7 feet. And these slopes here would have to be a minimum of 5 feet. Now, let's say if we're doing this a little bit differently, let's say we have a room that's more of a T-shape, more of a T-shape. And somebody put a floor down and everything else in there. We would have to find a spot where this became 5 feet. So 5 feet is the minimum. We could not count this as heated square foot, this below 5 feet. So as long as more than half of this room was 7 feet or bigger, we could count that. But we couldn't count anything that was below 5 feet. You're not allowed. All right. So the room has to be 7 feet or taller, and it can't be less than 5 feet from the ceiling. All right. Above grade and below grade. If all of that level is above the land, it is above grade. If one wall or more is below the ground level, like if you have a walkout, if one wall or below it would be called below grade. And grade is just where the dirt level is. And a lot of folks have really nice houses that are walkouts, right? The dirt comes up to the front door, and then they have a big slope in the back, and they have a nice walkout into a nice big backyard in a lower grade, okay? That still would be called below grade. Your basement would be below grade, okay? Anything that's underneath the ground level, that would be below grade. Anything that's above, finished, heated, accessible living space, above ground, that's called above grade, okay? All right, so just very quickly for square footage, measuring from the outside. If we can't measure from the outside, we're going to measure inside, add 6 inches for each exterior wall, right? Air conditioning is not required. Does have to have a permanent heat source, all right? And we have to be able to access heated square feet from heated square feet, all right? Commission gives us a 5% error, margin of error. And this heat source has to be a permanently installed heat source. And again, 7 foot ceiling minimum, 5 feet when it's sloped. All right, now let's start talking about, we need to think about some stuff here. We're going to price the property here. We need to price this property. So we're going to look around through the neighborhood. The easiest thing for us to do is try to find houses that have sold recently that are as close to our house as possible. And we're going to do an estimate, a probable sales price. So looking at the features of our house and then looking at the features of the ones that sold, we are going to come up with a probable sales price, okay? And this is what I call a comparative market analysis, or a CMA. And we're going to get into big detail when we get into chapter 17 on how to do this, okay? So, and on appraisals and pricing, but just for now, for today's point, all right? So this is not an appraisal. The only one who can do an appraisal is an appraiser, a certified licensed appraiser. That's it, okay? We cannot. So an appraiser is going to give an estimate of value. We're going to give a probable sales price, okay? They're going to give an opinion of value. That's what the appraiser. The only ones who can do an appraisal is the appraiser. That's it. We cannot call this an appraiser. So a CMA is a probable sales price. And then we're going to be able to estimate the seller's closing costs. All right, take out your thinking caps here. My seller at the end has a mortgage to pay off of $150,000. And he's going to pay me a 6% commission. How much do we have to sell the house for? If he's got a mortgage to pay off for $150,000, what's our minimum selling price? And he's going to pay me a 6% commission. What's our minimum selling price? Okay, if I take 159,000 and I multiply it by 6%, which is he's gonna pay me. So 159,000 times 6%. Somebody tell me what that is. Put it in your calculator. So that's going to be 95.40. So if I take that 159,000 and I subtract out that 95.40, that's going to leave me what? 158,460. Can we pay his mortgage off? No, we can't. So if you do this, guess who's going to be paying out of their commission pocket so that they can close this deal? We need to talk about a couple of things here. So the first thing is you can't just take 150,000, multiply it by 6% and come up with enough money to pay off the bills. Can't do that. What are we getting paid on? We're going to get paid on the sales price. The sales price is 100% of something. So that means that the 6% is coming off of here, which is going to leave, this is going to have to equal what? 94% of some number. Everybody agree? In this particular case, this is our X factor. So X, right, is going to have to equal what? 94%. So what we need to do is figure this out. So what's 94% of some number? Now, let's go back to this. We know this is 94%. I'm going to show you how to do the magic T right now. Now, some of you probably already know it. If you can come up with a better way, then you do whatever way you're comfortable with. But here's what we're going to look at. We have a partial number. Okay. We have the whole number. And we have a percentage. We can call this a return on investment. We can call this a capital contribution. But it'll always be some sort of percentage. Now, if I have the whole number and I multiply it by the percentage, I'm going to get the partial number. So if I got 100,000 and I multiply it by 50%, I'm going to end up with 50,000, right? That's what it's going to come to. All right. Now, if I have the partial and the whole, and I divide the partial by the whole, I'm going to come up with the percentage. And if I divide the partial by the percentage, I'm going to come up with the whole. All right, so let's change colors here and take a look at what we got. There you go. All right, I know that I need 150,000. Okay. But 150,000 is 94% of something. So I'm going to divide that by 94%. So do the math that Hunter's already done, and he's correct. All right. 159,574 and 46 cents. Okay. Now, maybe that was a little confusing, but take that number and multiply it by 94% and find out how much you got. Take 159,574 and 46 cents and multiply it by 94%. $150,000. All right, so let's do something a little differently. We're gonna work with this just a few minutes here. Okay. Let's clear this all off. So he's going to need 159,754 in order. That's going to be the minimum selling price. All right. So we're going to clear this. When you were in grade school, one of the things they never teach you about, which they really should, is this. If I'm going to add a group of numbers, if I got 8 15ths plus 22 37ths, plus 63 102s. How much is that? We can do the common denominator, and then we can multiply the numerators, and we can do all of that. But what they don't teach you in school, and they really should, and maybe they do now, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in school, but I have nobody's ever told me differently, is what they don't tell you is that this line between the 8 and the 15, all that line means is divided by. That's all it means. 8 divided by 15, 22 divided by 37, 63 divided by 102. Now, if you do it that way and turn these all into decimals, this will be a heck of a lot easier, won't it? Be a heck of a lot easier. So what's the difference if we have 150,000 divided by 94%? Not much. So this line here that we're going to put across in our T is going to mean divided by. Same as these do. Same as these do. Okay? So anytime we do that, this is going to be the whole number. If I take any whole number, if I tell you that your sale is going to net you $10,000 and you're going to get 35% of it, what are you going to do? You're going to take 10,000, you're going to multiply it by 35%, and you're going to get what? the partial, what you're going to get, right? Everybody agree? That's how you're going to do it. And that's the way it's done. Well, it's no different when we're talking about somebody's house. All right. So let's look at something different again. Our guy's got a mortgage to pay off of $230,000. He wants to put $50,000 on a new home. All right. And this is his mortgage. And he's going to pay me a 7% commission. I want to know, what do I have to sell this house for? What do I have to sell the house for? He needs total $280,000. Here's our T again. If this is 100% and this is 7%, well, this has to be what? 93%, right? So the relationship to that whole number, this is 100% over here, right? So we don't know what that is. That's X. Take this and we divide this, divide 280,000 by 93%. We got our minimum selling price has got to be 301,075.27. So you got to put together a list of everything. And what throws people off is the fact that they say, oh, 7% commission. Well, the 7% commission doesn't come out of his wish list. It comes out of the total price, which we haven't figured out yet, right? Comes out of the total price, which we haven't figured out yet. So I just wanted to introduce this to you here. We're going to see it a few more times in different ways. We can do all kinds of different problems. But in this particular case, when we have to figure out a sales price, if this seller doesn't get enough for the sales price and he has a mortgage to pay and he's got a deposit he wants to put on a new home and he sees how much you're going to get, and if he's a $500 from closing, he's going to throw up his hands and say, I can't close, I'm 500 short. And what are you going to do? You're going to take money out of your pocket and give it to him so he can close, and then you're going to make less money. If your mortgage company came to you and said, hey, look, we're not making a lot of money. We think we're going to withdraw your mortgage. Are you going to give them more money? Right? A deal is a deal. But you would give it to them. And if there's no reason to. That's how you find out how to price this property. So just to give you the gist of what our T is, this would be the whole. This would be our whole. What's our total value? All right. So this is 100% of something. If we want to know what our return on investment is, let's say we paid $300,000 for a business, and we want to make 10% on our money every year. Well, how much would we have to make every year? 300,000 times 10%. So our net operating income would have to be what? $30,000. Now, if I didn't hit that $30,000, I would either have to figure out how to make more sales or how to cut my expenses. And that's how you go with that. Now, if I told you, same thing, if I told you that our business was brought in $25,000 net and the owner wanted to make 17% on his money, what's the value of the property? What's the value of the property? Well, all I'm going to do is take that 25,000 and divide it by 17%, right? Somebody do that real quick and give it to me. 25,000 divided by 17%. 147,058 and 82 cents. That's the value of that property. If I'm going to be investing in it and I need to make 17% of my money, I'm only going to pay $147,000 for it. If they want 300,000, I'm going to tell them no way. So I can make a business decision based off of just looking at these numbers real quick. And we'll do a lot more with this. This is just an introduction. This is a tip of the cap to what we're doing here. We'll come back to this towards the end. We'll do a couple of problems with this. But this is how we're going to do it. And you'll do 3 or 4 questions. I promise you 3 or 4 questions on your test are going to be based on using this T. All right. So it's something you're going to have to get pretty comfortable with. All right. So that's how we price the property. We take what they need, what their mortgage payoff is, what their excise taxes are, all right? And then we figure out what the commission is going to be, and we divide it by the reciprocal, right? We got to take our 7% off of the whole or 6% off the whole, not what he's owed. It's not enough. Doesn't come out to enough. Let's go back to terminating some of these listings. We're going to come back to pricing. Okay, termination of listings. How do these things go away? We got a buyer's agreement, we got a seller's agreement, all right? Best thing we can do is what? Buy the house or sell the house, right? Get into a contract, go to closing, completion or fulfillment of purpose. Perfect, right? Yahtzee, that's what we want, all right? Now, both these things have end dates, specific end dates. If it expires, that does not automatically renew. The only thing that automatically renews is a property management contract. So no automatic renewal here. Day's over, it's done. We don't have an agreement anymore. We'd either have to sign an extension or write a new agreement. If I realize that a buyer's not going to buy or a seller's not interested in selling, maybe we need to talk and say, hey, are you interested? And maybe he says no or she says no. Then we can have a mutual agreement to terminate this agency. Let's have a mutual agreement. If I'm an agent and I give away price, terms, or motivation, there is no grace period for listing expiring. It ends a hard date on that. There is a 7-day automatic contract extension for no fault of either party. Okay, 7 days, but no listing expiring. So we would have mutual agreement, right? If I'm if I'm the agent and I go and tell somebody price, terms, and motivation to my client, he can terminate the listing by operation of law, foreclosure, bankruptcy, forced relocation of either the buyer or the seller. We've had people get thrown in jail while we're trying to do this stuff. It happens. Destruction or condemnation of the property, sorry. Hurricane comes and blows it down. Big bad wolf huffs and puffs and blows the house down. Listing over, right? Listing over. If the building is condemned through, if they claim eminent domain, the government claims eminent domain and uses condemnation to take that private property for a public use, can't sell it, right? Terminated. The death or incapacity of either party. If the owner dies, if the listing agent dies, is it over? If the listing agent dies, is this over? No. The owner, because the agent technically is the corporation. So unless you're a sole proprietor, now if you're a sole proprietor, your business is gone, right? You die. But if you work for somebody and you die, the corporation still exists. So there is still a listing agreement. Okay, they're just going to put somebody in my place as fast as they can get somebody. Okay, so the company would have to go out of business in order for that to happen. Let's take a half a step back and talk about the destruction of the property. If hurricane comes through and knocks this house over, all right, it terminates any listing agreements we may have. It terminates any sales contracts we may have. It terminates any property management agreements it may have. It terminates any leases, people who are renting there. What one doesn't it? It does not terminate the buyer's agency, though, does it? Right? What if it was vandalized between the owners? Still doesn't. It still doesn't. We may want to get into a mutual agreement to get out of it, because obviously I'm not going to sell it. But that might fall in. But there's no real statute that says if there's vandalism, they burn it to the ground. That's another story, because it's destroyed. Then I can't sell it. But in that particular case, it depends. But what if I have a buyer's agency agreement and the house that we were under contract with burns to the ground? So that contract is over. Is my buyer's agency agreement over? No. I'll go find him another house, right? There's nothing to, there's our relationship keeps going. Yeah, it's still with the firm, right? We're still looking for something. It may not be available anymore. We can find something else. So if a house is destroyed, it does not terminate the buyer's agency agreement. It terminates everything else, but not the buyer's agency agreement. The Residential Property Disclosure Act. Residential Property Disclosures Act. You'll see this as RPOADS, Residential Property Owners Association Disclosure. All right. So this is a form that's going to be given to every seller, except new homes, foreclosures, rent-to-owns. That's what NHFC or RTO stands for. New homes, foreclosures, and rent-to-owns. Okay. We're not going to give it to them. Now, this is a mandatory form that they have to sign, and I'll show it to you in a minute. It's an optional disclosure for the residential 1 to 4 units. The owners do not have to say anything. Caveat emptor. They can say nothing. All right. All right. So residential 1 to 4 units, optional, mandatory form, optional disclosure. All right. Doesn't have to be new homes, foreclosures, rent-to-owns. Right. Now, this form has to be given to the buyer no later than the time of the first offer. What should happen is I have it done. If I'm the listing agent, I'm going to have the buyer or the seller fill out the form, and then I'm going to put it in the MLS so that the buyer can go and get it, take a look at it. If not, all right, if not, and if the buyer makes an offer, I have 3 days to give them this seller's disclosure, or they can walk away from the offer. And then once I give it to them, they have 3 days to take a look at it. Okay. And at any point, they can withdraw their offer by looking at this disclosure form. All right. So that's, that is, so I'm going to show you the disclosure in a second. What we have to do, just because our clients cannot or do not have to, just because they don't have to fill out this form, or at least give us information, any information, we're not allowed to do that. If we know something that's a material fact, we must declare it. We have to put it in our listing. We have to make sure people know about it, everything else. So the responsibilities of agents here. We have an affirmative duty to discover and disclose the existence of material facts, regardless of how the seller completes the report. Now, as an agent, we are not allowed to complete the form for the seller. They have to fill it out. Even if they say nothing, they still have to fill it out. We can't do it for them. We can explain it to them. Can't do it for them. All right. And we have to make sure that the buyer customer gets it. Buyer consumer gets this form. All right, let's take a look at this form. This is called the Residential Property and Owners Association Disclosure Statement, RPOADS. All right. And this is what you'll see here. So anyway, there's a bunch of this, the instructions to property owners. You can see all of those. They're looking for yes responses if there is a problem. Okay, and you can read this. I gave you the copy of it. It's in the link. All right. Check back. Hopefully you saved it. Let me see if I can find it real quick again. We're going to do a mineral oil and gas too. Remember that? We're allowed to sell that. Maybe if we haven't already sold it. All right. So this is the first one. The first link there is this form. And there's a bunch. You can read this. All right. Note to buyer. All right, if the owner does not give you a residential property or owners association disclosure statement by the time you make your offer to purchase the property, you may, under certain conditions, cancel any resulting contract without penalty to you as the buyer. To cancel the contract, you must personally deliver a mail written notice of the decision to cancel to the owner or the owner's agent within 3 days following your receipt of the disclosure statement, or 3 calendar days following the date of the contract, whatever occurs first. All right. However, in no event does the Disclosure Act permit you to cancel the contract after settlement of the transaction. All All right, addresses here on the bottom, page 1. Now, the following questions address characteristics and conditions of the property identified above about which you have actual knowledge. All right. Now, in what year was the dwelling constructed? If you know, that's fine. If you don't want to answer, you come over here to this column that says no representation. No representation. You check that. Means you're not going to say, or you don't know. Number 2, is there a problem, malfunction, or defect with the dwelling's foundation, slab, fireplaces, etc.? You can say, yes, there is a problem, and then explain it. You can say, no, there is no problem. Or you can come over here and say, I ain't telling. I don't have to tell you. No representation. And this goes on. Any leakage, any water seepage, all these. Now notice that the only questions that have a box at every single one, all that say no representation. Not everything is a yes or no. But at every single question, you have the ability to say, or your client has the ability to say no representation. We're not talking about it. All right. And they do have to sign it, the owner's initial and dates. Buyers have to sign it. All right. Same thing with the next page. All of these boxes have no representation. They can say no, or they have to answer honestly. If they answer honestly, it's got to be accurate. All right. So if it says yes to any of the questions above, please explain or attach sheets. So you have to, if there's a problem, you got to tell them what the problem is. Okay. Again, everything has a no representation here. Are there any HOAs, anything that's got to be paid? Right, that has to be filled in. And again, more HOA information. Right, all have a no representation. I don't even have to tell them that there is an HOA. Right? No management fee, anything like that. Management fees, master insurance, trash removal. I'm not telling you. Figure it out. So that's what you got to go through. And then the buyer's initials and date and the owner's initials and date. So this is your residential property owner's disclosure.
If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. For more real estate education content, please subscribe to the channel. From all of us at Seacoast Real Estate Academy, thank you for watching.